Collision with Purpose movement. Dr. Donna Thompson and Dr. Lorraine J. Smith. Every generation is shaped by voices that rise when others are silent. Voices of courage. Voices of wisdom. Voices that remind the world that leadership has many faces. This is her legacy. There's a story in every heart, a fire in every dream. Women rising through the dark, stronger than they seem. Through every challenge they stand tall, through every storm they rise, turning doubt into resolve with vision in their eyes. Every word becomes a light, every step becomes a way, building bridges through the night toward a brighter day. When purpose calls and courage speaks, a voice can change the world we seek. This is her legacy. Voices shaping history, rising strong for all to see, lighting paths for every generation. This is her legacy. Where wisdom meets destiny, hope and strength for all to see, building futures through inspiration. From the mothers who guide to the leaders who lead, from the dreamers who try to the ones who believe. Every lesson passed along, every door that opens wide, every woman standing strong with determination as her guide. The future listens when she speaks, the world begins to see that the strength we truly seek lies in possibility. When purpose leads and voices unite, the world begins to change tonight. This is her voices shaping history, rising strong for all to see, lighting paths for every generation. This is her, where wisdom meets destiny, hope is strength for all to see, building futures through inspiration. Across every nation, across every land, the power of a woman will always stand. Her voice is a promise, her strength is a key, her courage writes tomorrow for the world to see. Voices shaping history, rising strong for all to see, changing lives across the nation. Purpose meets identity, guiding hearts for all to see. A movement built on inspiration. Join the conversation on her legacy. Hosted by Dr. Donna Thompson and Dr. Lorraine J. Smith. Presented by the A Collision with Purpose movement. Because when women speak with purpose, generations listen.
Good evening all, and welcome. It's Wednesday. There is something so powerful and profound about a voice that refuses to be silenced, a voice that has endured, a voice that has carried wisdom through generations, a voice that has shaped families, communities, and nations. And for too long, many of those voices have gone unheard, overlooked, or underestimated. But today, we create a space where those voices are not only heard, they are honored. So this evening, we welcome you to Her Legacy, a platform dedicated to the wisdom, strength, and influence of women whose voices impact generations. Because when a woman finds her voice, she does more than speak. She transforms lives. I am Dr. Donna Thompson, your host.
And I'm Dr. Lorraine Smith. Together, we invite you into conversations that matter, conversations that challenge, inspire, and empower.
So, Dr. Lorraine, how are you doing today? Before we get into our show, how's it going? Where are you joining us from this evening?
I am doing very well, I might say, and I'm joining you from the beautiful city of Montego Bay, Jamaica. It's a little bit of tonight, but it's so great.
Nice, nice, wonderful. So I'm quite sure the weather is great and you're enjoying the weather there. We're a little bit chilly here today.
It is wet, but it's still warm.
Nice. So I know we have this is exciting because it's our first show, right? Today is our grand launch of her legacy. So I know we have so much to talk about, but so excited that we're here on the platform and we can really just share and talk about just different things about womanhood and just excited. I'm very excited that we have this platform. How are you feeling? All right, so tonight, we're going to go ahead and get started with our show. So we're going to start off and we're going to begin with, a very powerful and profound question. And that is, what happens when a woman fully understands the power of her voice? And why is it important to create such a platform specifically for women's voices at this particular time, right? Even though we know that it's March and it's Women's Month, we're celebrating Women's Month and everything, but we want to talk about why is it so important for us to have a space for women to really be able to express themselves. So, many women carry a lot of wisdom. However, there's kind of like a lack of a platform to really have those conversations, right? And oftentimes the society, hears women, but do they really fully listen? They may not fully listen and understand the dynamics of womanhood. So creating an intentional space for truth, healing, and leadership is pivotal in this time and era. And the need for real unfiltered conversations, because we have to understand that not only is our conversations impacting our older generation, younger generation, middle generation, but even for generations to come, right? The legacy for the grandchildren, the great grandchildren. It's so important for us to have such a platform where we can share knowledge, we can share our journey of things that we've had to overcome as women. And if we don't share, then unfortunately, we're not leaving anything for the younger generation to learn. They leave confused, not inspired. So, just many different things that can potentially happen to our younger generation. So, Dr. Lorraine, we were just, I was just saying, basically, the importance that we have, the importance of why we created this platform specifically for women, right? What the importance is. And I was just kind of, going over that, oftentimes women, we have a lot of wisdom. We have a lot of wisdom. And we just don't necessarily have, a good platform where we can have dialogue and really having a true space where we can really be authentic about who we are, where we are, and not really even making excuses, but really seeking truth, right? Seeking truth so that we can heal and we can continue to lead and be better leaders, whether it's or churches, whatever that may be. And why we really need to have these unfiltered conversations. But let me get your input on what your thoughts are in reference to us having this platform.
So to add to what you said, so as a woman, I believe in women supporting women. And that's based on our experience are very empowering and powerful to share with younger women and women of same age, and to build on the foundation of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and to build next generation. So there's a saying in terms of some of the mistakes that have been made, or to prevent, mistakes to be made, is to listen to the journey of other women. And so to be able to prevent, you said, well, when I was growing up, maybe I did it this way. Maybe this is the way you can do it. And that's the heart-to-heart conversations that can occur. And so that in itself can be measurable and empowering to a younger woman versus hearing from someone else that doesn't share, in terms of gender. And we're not saying it's not valuable from someone else, but it certainly is very valuable from a woman, and especially a woman who comes from, a region of culture. You're saying you share the same culture. I see this a lot from a woman who may choose me because of the culture that I'm from. They look at my picture, they see that, and immediately they can trust that where I'm coming from, I come from a place of care and empathy. And what I bring to them is, as you said, that wisdom and knowledge that is going to impart them to them so that they can continue to learn and to be guided. And I think it's important for us as women to share that. And to be at a place that you can uplift another woman to be able to continue their journey of healing.
Right. So it's, a voice without a platform is definitely a potential waiting to be realized. And, talking about that, we're looking at the influence of women across generations, right? So, how do women influence generations, even when they don't realize it? How do we influence those generations? What's your thoughts on that?
In terms of building bridges?
In terms of influencing our generations, whether it's, like in our roles that we play, right? We're mothers, we're mentors, we're leaders. We shape thinking and identity over our children, generational patterns, so many different ways that we influence generations and not really realizing it. And it could be positive or negative, right? It can be both. It can be positive and negative. But
and I think it's so as females, so before you become a woman, you have the opportunity to influence. The caring, the nurture versus nature, we are born with the ability to influence. How we influence, as you said, is important because you can have a negative influence. You will see sometimes someone said, I don't want to be like that person. that's negative. And quickly they will make the comparison and say, I want to be like that other person over there. And so the decision to be a positive influence depends on you, the person. What's the impact that you want to leave? Do you want to leave, the memory of someone who changed, who made a positive change, versus the person that, you left that memory of, oh, so and so, with a bad taste, like someone who walk in the room, and when you walk in the room, you change the old atmosphere where everything turned bad, or you walk in the room and you change the atmosphere for it to be more positive than negative. We all have the ability to do that. And I believe that women have a bigger influence in that, because when we speak, sometimes people will sit up to listen, especially when you have that voice of, and it's not a voice of screaming and yelling, but it's a soft voice of caring, a soft voice of really kind of, and especially when the whole place may be filled with chaos, and you come in with a soft voice to bring some calm to it, you have that ability to influence. And you have that ability for someone to listen and learn, or maybe a voice where you bring some answers to the question, a problem solving, way in which to influence. We have that ability, but is it that we are carrying those abilities, or we care to carry those abilities, or even increase our vision in doing that? Because as you get older, you realize that, wait a minute, have those skill sets,
Right.
to be a leader, and so you can branch out into that and become that person that someone turn to when they're in problems, that person that they run to. You can become that, as you have now become the magnet throughout those years and have picked up something. And so someone can run to you and say, hey, I'm having this situation. You can sit them down and become, as you said, that positive influence. Absolutely.
Yeah, and so when you talk about that, it's really like, when we really look, like every single woman, we're building legacy in just ordinary moments. It's
Yeah.
like those opportunities where everyday life, you're actually building your legacy. And it's something that sometimes we don't realize it. You may not realize it, that you're actually living your legacy. And it goes to saying, really rethinking to be intentional, right? Trying to be more intentional about how you're living. But sometimes, like you're saying, sometimes that comes with getting, a little bit older and a little bit wiser and
Mhm.
life experiences.
Making some mistakes yourself and learning from those mistakes, and
Mhm.
looking back at your life, and said, wait, I remember when, but looking,
Exactly.
yeah, and saying, yeah, but I'm no longer doing this. It's really doing some self reflection and self analysis, and saying, oh, but maybe I have grown. And because you've grown and you've been through some growing pains, you're able to help someone who's younger to say, there was a time when I used to do that, but I don't do that anymore. Maybe I could show you how not to do that anymore.
Right. Right.
Right?
Exactly. Exactly. So with that, we're going to talk about, so the purpose really behind her legacy. What is the deeper purpose behind this show? And we're having some dialogue here, we're sharing information, so we can see that there's so much to unpack, and there's really a reason and a platform and a purpose why we have to have this type of a platform, so we can have these conversations. And we're creating awareness and just awakening identity in who we are, and whomever else is out there that's listening to us, whether it's a younger version of ourselves,
Yeah, yeah.
a middle version of ourselves, or even our elders.
You know,
Our elders need this as well. So, and encouraging women to just step into leadership, step into who they are, and really providing real conversations, not just that surface level talk that a lot of us have grown up to do. We want to get rid of those stereotypes, and building a movement, and just not just a show. So her legacy, that's what we're going to bring here. We're going to break all those barriers. We're going to break all those stereotypes, and we're just going to have a real dialogue, because I know that I have been around quite a number of women, and in my age group and younger, and we're all struggling with something and don't have a really good place to go to get the answers. So a lot of us, we're misguided. We have misguided information, even down to your medical. We go through different phases, and different things happen to us at different times in our lives, and information is so skewed. So you find that a lot of us, we go through this path of womanhood totally misguided. Like, we definitely want to have that here, where we can bring information, and we can share that information, and we can be honest. We can be honest, and we can be authentic in the information that we're sharing with each other, because it's all about uplifting each other and helping each other to grow. We want each other to grow. Everyone can grow, whether it's an elder person, they can listen to us and they can get something from our shows, and they can grow as well, because I'm quite sure there's things that they've experienced that they may never spoke about, and they can learn, right? So because of that, her legacy, like I said, it's just not a conversation. It's really a call for us to rise to become better versions of ourselves in our womanhood, as we're going through this thing called life. So with that, we're going to talk about, some of the conversations that we need to have today, and conversations that we're avoiding, So, some of the conversations, what conversations as far as women do you see where we've been avoiding, that we really need to have those dialogue? We need to have those conversations.
One of the things I want to say is there'll be no judgment here. When you talk about being authentic,
Yes.
the next thing is that judgment. And I usually have to remind folks that most time the judgment comes from self, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make the air very clear. There's no judgment. And if you start to judge yourself, kind of start to unpack that. So in order for us to build this legacy, you have to take the judgment off, right? And talk about the things that we do not want to talk about the most. I think most of it is within us, the feelings that we may have, the things that bothers us the most as women, that we have tucked away. I want to talk about it, especially when you talk about so there's different age group, different stages, different situations. It's not a one size fits all, right? So younger women may have different things that they don't want to, they've been avoiding. And the middle-aged women will have things that they've been avoiding. The older women may have things that they've been avoiding, right? So it won't be a one size fits all.
Right. Absolutely. And, like, even one of the things is, when we talk about, mental health and or emotional health and or emotional well-being.
So when we look at a woman in a younger stage, it may be identity, sexual identity. How am I aligning myself with that? If you look at a woman who is more in a middle age ground, it's my mental health. It has changed a lot. My hormones are all over the place. Today I'm okay, tomorrow I'm not. What's going on? I don't know how to handle this. What is going on? Is it something I should be talking about? Is there something I should be doing? And who do I talk to about it? If it's an older woman, it may be, well, I'm feeling some sort of way and by myself. I'm an empty nester. Do I
Mhm.
go to dating? I may not want to get married, but I want to date.
Right.
It's a lot of stuff. But we're
No,
still,
and it's yeah, and you're right, because I the other day I went to this event, and I'm just gonna share. I went to this event, and it was like a wellness center, right? And it was, and it was about women, menopause, right? That menopausal age. And I'm telling you, I walked away learning so much. And that was some of the information, like, some of the speakers shared and the doctors shared, where some women, they're at a certain age and they're wanting to get back into the dating world. They've raised their kids, all that stuff, but it's challenging, because you're at this age, you want to get back into that world, but then you're also dealing with that next part of your life, of the whole menopausal thing and all the different things that come with it, where it was quite interesting that they were also sharing that sometimes, even when you go to your regular primary care doctor, they may not know how to diagnose you.
right.
Like, you have to find a specialist that really deals with that can really figure out what is going on, because there's so many hormones that we have that is out of whack.
Hormones.
And it was so interesting to learn that. And every single woman, your experience is so different. It is so different, because some were like, a lot of women, they share about the sweats, and that's like the most common thing, when you have all the sweats and everything. And someone were like, I don't even have that.
Right. So it
you know
depends on the level of estrogen. It depends on the individual, how active they were, physically active, how healthy they were. And so
exactly.
they have a different kind of life when they're older versus when they're younger. You find that you look different, you feel different. You actually feel younger in menopause than you were when you were younger.
Right. And it was quite interesting to learn as well that not very common, not very common. However, you like you can actually go through menopause as early as 35.
Yes. Yes.
So it was very, and they went over that whole premenopausal
Mhm.
period to the when you're really in menopause, so, and all the different things that happen. But, you know, just even with that, and I'm talking about that whole mental and emotional health part of it, like, sometimes when you're going through that, like, a lot of women, you may think like, I'm going crazy, I'm depressed, I'm like, your mental state is just, it's totally different, and not necessarily realizing that your hormones is really out of whack, and you probably should get some kind of treatment.
And not just treatment, so you also have the talk therapy that goes with that, teach you who've had anxiety before. You
Hmm.
might wake up in your 40s, 50s, and there goes anxiety. I teach it like this. You're sleeping and anxiety is standing up over you and saying, what are you doing? Why are you sleeping when you should be anxious about something? You never in your life had anxiety, but here you have anxiety. Generalized anxiety is just standing up. And my clients usually laugh. They're like, how do you know? I said, because that's what anxiety does. It tells you, listen, why you sleep when you should be worrying about something. And he said, worried about what? He said, worried about anything.
Hmm.
And so I teach what anxiety feels like, and how it pops up out of nowhere in the middle of your greatest sleep. You're sleeping and just said, gotcha. And there you go. For the rest of the night, you can sleep. So just teaching folks, really getting a good therapist and therapists that kind of understand your culture. Because if you come from the Caribbean and you really like not understanding why is this happening, just someone taking this time, woman to woman, taking the
Hmm.
time to really kind of give you that psycho education so that you're comfortable. And even if they have to repeat themselves 100 times, you're still comfortable with it until you understand that, listen, this is a different stage of my life that I'm going through, and how do I cope with it? How do I cope? Because it's not going to just turn around in a minute. It will take you a while to learn I'm in a different stage of my life. It's just like when you were a teenager, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 hits, and you wake up like, what happened to me? It's the same thing.
Right. You start puberty happens.
You learn to be, oh, okay, all those mood swings at 13, 14, the pimples popping out.
Mm-hmm.
You just learn that you are same person, just different stage.
Right. Right. And like we're saying, that's something that's so important, and for us to even have conversations and open dialogue about this, because it's even for the younger generation, it's not a thing where it's not going to happen. It's going to happen. It's part of our life. But having a open dialogue to really speak about these things definitely makes a difference, because it affects, just like what we're talking about now, it affects so many different parts of our life. It affects our mental, it affects our physical, it affects our emotion, our families.
Your sex life, the biggest part where folks don't want to talk about it,
Right.
affects relationship,
Mm-hmm.
it affects your marriage, it affects your romantic, the intimacy in your relationship. And
Yep.
so I would usually say to someone, you probably need to speak to a sex therapist about these things.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really affecting it like that. And so these are the things we're going to talk about as women, right? Empowering, our legacy. Our legacy is really empowering us across the board, because how can you be happy, right?
Right.
How can you be happy is you can't look at one area of your life and be happy. You look at the entire area of your life. And our legacy meaning is that we share the wisdom. So if we know what it is to take care of the different parts of our life and ensure that our emotional wellness is okay, then we share it. You share it with, as I said, the younger women, and you share it with the middle age. The middle age can say, you know what? So we did it this way, and you keep on sharing it until it becomes, as you said, an acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
It's no longer a stigma, or it's no longer, we cannot talk about that anymore. It's not acceptable. It becomes like, yeah, it's okay. We can talk about it.
Right.
Because some conversations are hard to talk about because we feel that it's not acceptable to talk about it. But it is acceptable to talk about it. It's part of human nature.
Yeah, because unfortunately sometimes, it's like culture and upbringing, it almost make it appear like
it's a taboo,
yeah, like it's a shame, just like what we're saying, like you're talking about like the earlier stages in like a young lady, when you start that menstrual period, like you it's not really talked about. It's really looked upon as something really that should not be discussed and under the table. But however,
Mm-hmm.
it's conversations that need to happen, because this is a time when a young girl's body has changed, and like you said, she's going through that same little mood swings and don't know what's happening to her necessarily, why this is happening, and having to fight those hormonal imbalances. So it's the same, like you're saying, it's conversations that we need to have, and just kind of like break that taboo and say, hey, this is life and this is human nature.
Being put in a shameful package, it's put in a beautiful package where it's shown that it's all about growing up and accepting your body and realizing that your body's maturing. So it becomes more of a because in some culture it's a celebration that, oh, you're growing up, you're
Right.
turning
Yeah.
into a beautiful young lady. We do not do that in our culture. It's more
No.
of, oh my goodness, it's the shame and the guilt, put a
Yeah.
shame there,
Yeah.
So we can reverse some of that and turn it into what it ought to be, an opportunity of educating this young girl turning into a beautiful young lady about her body and the beauty of now you have the opportunity. What do? You create an opportunity of kindness too as well,
Right.
because in the days when these messages were being given, they were so unkind. So,
Yeah.
the trauma of how these messages were given was very unkind. So we have the opportunity to change those messages, make them beautiful, and allow that young woman to be accepting herself with love, that's self-love.
Right, and that's so important because it goes into the identity and self-worth of how a lot of women see themselves. Like, a lot of times you may see some women where, yeah, you think, they're like beautiful and, everything on the exterior looks great and it appears to be all together. But on the inside, there could be a lot of identity crisis she's dealing with. She's fighting low self-esteem and all these different things that she could be dealing with. But on the exterior, you just camouflage it all.
Mhm.
you
And
know, and we
because
have
of
to break those things.
right, we are product of interaction, product of who poured into us. We're a product
Right.
of everything that our society. We're a product of who raised us.
Hmm.
Whether you like it, whether that sounds good or not, we're a product of that. And so if the persons who poured into us at that point in time made it a shameful thing, then guess what? The product is our self-esteem is going to be chiseled away. And whatever, because remember, self-esteem is something that is built.
Right.
You know, it may be a little bit there, and what was done, it was just snatched away. And so this little girl no longer has anything to go on. We look at herself in the mirror and all she sees ugly, poor self-image, grow up to have just not even from poor, nothing, to really say, I'm a beautiful little girl. And this little girl could be so beautiful, as you said, on the outside, but nothing on the inside, because this child now becomes a product
Of what
of,
was poured into her.
yes.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and that's so on point because we think even and our parents do they sometimes it's generational, right? They raise you based on how they were raised.
Yeah.
um but a lot of times not realizing that words, the power of words,
Yes.
and if you keep pouring that negative word over that person, eventually they own it. Eventually they own it and believe that's who they are.
And they live it. They not only do they own it and live it. So I'm a big believer. I say this all the time: sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but words may never hurt me, is the line.
Lie.
All the time, it's the biggest lie that we were fed.
Mm-hmm.
And when you call your children's name, you call them that they're ugly, and even if they weren't ugly, they do become ugly,
Right.
because they go to their bed thinking I'm ugly. They wake up thinking they're ugly. Of course, they're going to be ugly. They look in the mirror and say I'm ugly. I can remember I do what you call the mirror therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I remember doing this, and I say, look in the mirror, and person, I cannot, I do not own a mirror in my house. And the reason being is I cannot look in the mirror. And I never even thought that there would be a person who don't own a mirror in their house. But
Wow.
that's how much we can damage
Mm-hmm.
children to the point where they become adults and don't own a mirror in their house. So because they just can't look at themselves.
Right. But that's why you said that old time thing, how we were raised, sticks and stones don't break your bones, and words. And yeah, words is the most damaging thing.
And it lives on. You can erase them from the paper, but you can't erase them from the mind. So what you see, you can't unsee. What you hear, you can't unhear. What you feel, you cannot unfeel it. It lives on.
Yeah, and
And
then you get to an adult and you're trying to now redefine yourself, find your identity, and have to rebuild your entire self-worth, because now you're having to unpack years
unpack like a suitcase. That,
year.
that's such a powerful word. Unpack.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Live.
you're having to unpack years of what has been poured into you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I said, we just really have to um really have these open discussions, open conversations, open dialogue, you know, because everything that we're talking about here now, it everything has an effect, whether it's a consequences, cause and effect, everything, something happens with everything that happens.
An impact.
And how we were raised, it flows right back into our relationships as women,
Mhm.
and setting boundaries setting boundaries. You know, a lot of some women, right? Some women, they have challenges setting boundaries, potentially coming from how they were raised, right?
Right.
So sometimes because of how you were raised, you didn't get the nurturing. You may find yourself seeking love, affection, attention in other places, things, people, whatever it may be. And then you get to a point where you don't set boundaries. You kind of just start accepting anything and everything because you're wanting someone or something to make you feel better, to make you feel like you're a better person. And and then unfortunately, we find that a lot of our women, we get into situations that it's not really the best for us. And then you have to fight to find yourself again, right? How to get out of certain things.
So boundaries is, I believe it's one of the most difficult thing to,
Mm.
when you go into conversation, you talk about setting boundaries, because folks will say, what do you mean?
Right.
So you have to explain what are boundaries, because most folks don't even know what boundaries are, you know. So it's establishing boundaries, explaining that, you know, what is it that you accept
Mm-hmm.
and what is it that you do not accept. So for the folks that with the unhealthy relationship, they don't even know what boundaries are.
Right.
So anything goes for anyone. And so you have to first kind of expose them to this concept of boundaries. And I said expose is like you're turning on the light and said, oh, there's such a thing as boundaries. You know, there is.
Mm-hmm.
And so after you expose it, then you say, okay, so let me walk you into this. Step number one. This is how, and you see it as easy as boundaries with family members. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to do it within the family context. Boundaries in family, boundaries outside.
Right.
By one. And so, and then you said on healthy boundaries, so it's a step by step and learning. So that's, and as I said, that's one of the biggest thing, because then they never grew up with boundaries. They never grew up seeing folks with boundaries being created. So they themselves don't know what it is to
Mm.
have their own boundaries. So,
or even just growing up and not being able to even express their likes or dislikes.
mhm,
You
mhm,
know,
mhm.
always being told this is what you have to do, this is what you have to be, this is what you have to say, da, 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 da. Once again, you know, that thing of pouring into someone.
Right.
And so even for themselves, they haven't even fully developed into who they really could be, should be, because they
Right.
probably, you know, they were never able to express their likes or dislikes.
Mhm.
It's kind of like
Which,
someone's always telling you what
which
to
is
do.
boundaries as well. They never had a chance to make choices. They
Right.
never had a chance to have a say, like, I don't like that. You shouldn't do that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't believe that I want to be a part of that. You know, um, never had the chance for that. So and anything went, and they would go with anything because they didn't have a chance to say no.
Right.
That's one of the biggest thing. Children not knowing how to say no.
Because they were never allowed to. It's
They
like,
were like never taught, never given the opportunity. Because remember, those are things that you have to be taught.
right.
Or to say, you know what, you can say no.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be saying yes all the time. If you see your child saying yes, you said, okay, hold on a minute. Do you always say yes? You know, is there a time when I'm not around that you say no? Yeah, because it's scaring me that you're always saying yes.
You're always saying yes. Yeah, you know, and you know
See,
what's, it's interesting you're saying that, because sometimes we may say, okay, well, you know, yes, a good thing because they're kind and they're da 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 and they're nice. But
I'm
you have to really pay attention to those tendencies.
even for me. I'm a test and see. Is there a time that you say no? Yeah, you
Right.
hear some no's. Because if you are hearing yeses all the time, then you want to test and say, is the time when you should be hearing no's, you want to hear some no's.
Mm-hmm.
Boundaries.
Boundaries. Yeah. 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 That is true. That's so true. You know. And then another thing that, you know, we're talking about here is, you know, even as women, just thinking about being financially independent,
Oh,
and how that flows into
that's a big scary one, Dr. Don. Big scary one.
and how that, you know, and how that really, you know, affects our leadership, because,
Mm,
you know, sometimes some individuals can be, you know, a little bit intimidated by a woman being financially independent. um and so sometimes, you know, depending on the situation, you know, you can find where women are more, you should, I mean, not now, it's not as much now, because we find that, you know, more women are going out, they're doing things, and they're doing a lot of great things. And
mhm,
there are a lot of, you know, they're in a lot of leadership space, and which is great. However, I think we still have some struggle there with where it's, you're kind of looked upon still, you're supposed to be the homemaker, where these are the things that you're supposed to do at home, and, you know, as if, you know, you don't really make good financial decisions. And I think that's kind of like a you know, a taboo, because I find that, you know, women can be very, you know, they're very analytical, I think, or some women, and you know, they can make good financial decisions. But I do think, you know, it's getting to a point where it's almost like um a woman being financially independent
mhm.
can almost be looked up on as something, um not negative for us, of course, but it can be looked up as
Mhm.
a form of being intimidated, right? Because it's almost like we now we can say, okay, we have our money, we can make our own decisions, da 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 da, da, and you don't need anyone else to help you, when I don't think that's really necessarily the case with women, but I think it can come off in that not so nice way.
I agree with what you said. So I believe it has to do with the folks who are involved, both, right?
Hmm.
Yes, women have come a far way in terms of gaining their independence, being more financially stable, being able to climb the ladder and break some of the glass ceilings, as we would say, in
Hmm.
corporate. I've been one of them, right? Even when I work for someone else, I've been the business owner for 13 years. So, but when I was in corporate, I climbed, um, but I always say this, not because you become financially independent, meaning you're totally independent.
Right.
I'll quickly say to anyone, I have to get somebody to fix my car because I'm not a mechanic. So, because we can easily be fooled that we are independent, but we're not
Correct.
independent, and you have to be able to remind, if you're looking for a partner, like, listen, I'm not independent in everything.
Right.
So that's why I said it really has to do with, the two folks that are coming together, um, so that you're not having this battle of the sexes or the
Right.
battle of the money,
Hmm.
and it has to do with the guy that you're with, because I don't think money should be a situation where it's you're intimidating, it become an intimidating factor.
Right.
um, money creates freedom, right? Because it gives you the opportunity to do more, but it's how is it handled
Hmm.
as a woman. That's me, because the man, and I'm going from this point of view, so I hope I don't get anything thrown at me when I go to the door.
No, we're not going to throw anything. No, nothing thrown at us.
At us. It's how you handle yourself as an individual.
Right.
How do you make your partner feel? No matter
Hmm.
how much you have or how little you have, your partner is still considered equal.
Correct.
That's how I look at it. It's not about the money, it's not about the education. No one is fully independent. As I said, I need more than my car to fix. I need many other things to be done. So I see the opportunity for us to become successful and more successful as women as an opportunity to
Hmm.
build with our partners, right? Together. That's a great opportunity for us to come together and build together. Build it, they said behind every successful man, there's a great woman. So I put it the other way around. Behind every successful woman is a greater man, too, as
Hmm.
well. It's being successful so you can build an empire together.
Together. Right. Right.
You
Because you
know,
need each other. Ultimately, you
I
you
think so.
you need you need each other.
Go over and scratch my own back, but together, two is I can go the journey by myself, but if it's two, we can go further together.
Right.
That's
And
what.
that's important for us to really even recognize and say as a woman, because sometimes, sometimes as women, and like we said earlier, we're not going to get anything thrown at us, but we're being real here. We're being real and we're being truthful. Is that sometimes as women, when we get to that point where we're financially up there, we get a little bit ahead of ourselves.
A little bit heady, and you start to feel, but I think that's the time to have a lot of sense, not a sense of self, but a sense of humility, so you can invite someone else in your space to share life.
Exactly.
Because not because you're successful, meaning you want to journey it alone. You want to have the best partner with you, the one who can really share life with you and do this journey together with you. And I believe that's when you see the success grow even more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
I totally agree with you. But let me see here. Oh my gosh. We're almost down to look here.
Wow.
We're here talking. We're talking. We started out fast and now we're really getting deep into it.
But we'll have more episodes to get deeper.
But we have so much more to unpack, so much more to talk about. And like I said earlier, the conversations we avoid, oftentimes those are the ones that change lives, and those are the ones that we need to talk about and really dive deep into, just like how we were just getting into our dialogue right there and just being real and honest. But I know that we're coming close to our hour, and it's our first evening here with everyone. So we're just gonna, throw a few quick questions out there, and we can just, answer them, take a quick minute to answer because we're almost at that hour. But what has your voice been silent about that needs to be expressed? Do you have anything that you could share with us, Dr. Lorraine?
I just know that I'm excited to see this journey of her legacy kick off. We touched on some topics that we know we want to get deeper in. We just touched on them. The last one, when we talk about how successful we have been as women, how far we have come this journey, and how it can sometimes intimidate or derail us also as women when it comes to our relationship. I'm excited to kind of delve more into that. Okay. Or us, we being influencers as women, that's that's just an powerful topic. I believe it's time that we step out from under our own shadows as women,
Right.
and begin to empower our younger women. I work with a lot of college students, like medical students, PhD students, and I just love to see when they flourish. I believe it's time for us to also stop feeling intimidated by the younger generation and just say, hey, come along, pull them along and push them to the front too as well. Push them to the front.
Yes.
We can stand behind them and say, hey, we are ready to see you flourish. That's just me. For myself, I have 3 daughters, and I'm ready to see them flourish. I think for us, we should be ready to see our young women flourish. And as I said, push them to the front and embrace them. And let's see her legacy rise.
Rise. I absolutely agree with you. Totally agree with you. I know that we're gonna ask our next question here. Who has been influenced by your life without you realizing it? I know I can say for me, just a quick response. I believe it's more than anything else. I believe it's my son that I've probably had an influence on his life, and vice versa. And he's had a big impact on my life as well. But we're at the hour of our show. We will be back next Wednesday. But Lorraine, is there anything you would like to share with us this evening before we close out?
Just, I would say as women, for us to just see ourselves as equals, not as being how sometimes we see ourselves trying to get the same slice of life and trying to take the same slice at the same time,
Mhm.
see yourself as equals and support each other, knowing that there's enough slice in life. I always say there's enough slice in the pie of life, and we can all support each other to get a slice out of life. And if we see ourselves as that, then we are able to support each other. It's as simple as that. It's like straightening each other's crown, supporting the next woman to get over, to be able to stand on my shoulders so they can go over their own barriers. That's it. And as we do that, as we're able to build this legacy, her legacy, the influencers, as I said, I myself as girls, and I've influenced them to build their own life. My mom influenced me. As I influence other young women, you can influence others as well.
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
and that's what life is all about, is for us to influence someone else and someone else and someone else. That's it. So
Absolutely.
tonight, we just
Absolutely.
want to thank you for joining us. And that I hope that between now and next week that you will influence someone, another woman, in your journey or life, in this journey.
Thank you. So with that, we are wrapping up our show, and we just want to say thank you for joining us this Wednesday evening on Her Legacy. And just remember, every woman carries a voice, but not every woman uses it. And the difference between silence and expression is often the difference between limitation and legacy. And you all have legacy in you. Your voice is not just for you, it is for the generations that is connected to you. So the question is not whether your voice matters. The question is, will you use your voice? Will you use it? This is Her Legacy. And we thank you for joining us. Join us next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. as we continue our conversations that inspire, challenge, and transform. Because when women rise with purpose, generations are influenced. Join us tomorrow, Thursday evening as well at 7:30 p.m. for Bridging Generations. Thank you for joining Her Legacy this Wednesday evening, and have a blessed and wonderful evening.
A collision with purpose movement. Dr. Donna Thompson and Dr. Lorraine J. Smith. Every generation is shaped by voices that rise when others are silent. Voices of courage. Voices of wisdom. Voices that remind the world that leadership has many faces. This is her legacy. There's a story in every heart, a fire in every dream. Women rising through the dark, stronger than they seem.